Getting into chapter 253 of Jujutsu Kaisen, we are graced with a delicious Gege coloring of Maki plunging the sword through Sukuna, and what a sight to behold. This color spread is unbelievably satisfying. But getting into the chapters, it starts off with a sort of flashback where we get another version of when the characters of the series were asked who's the strongest sorcerer, with their answer being Gojo, obviously. But this time, the question that is asked is who is the strongest grade 1 sorcerer. We first have Meimei, who answers that Kusakabe is the strongest, and next is Nanami, who again seems to lean towards Kusakabe, even though it's dependent on the situation. And Gojo is in fact after, and he too answers similarly that it is in fact Kusakabe, and finally Kusakabe himself, who plainly states that it's someone other than him or Usami. And I love this little section because it plays on the previous interviews where Gojo was the answer, but this time it's someone who hasn't portrayed himself to be the strongest of their grade, but is heralded like he is. It shows that Kusakabe isn't all that he seems and might pull something from his sleeve in the coming fight. But before we get into the rest of the chapter, if you're enjoying this video, please like and subscribe. It really helps my small channel grow. Also, I've made a Patreon and it's in the description below. Support me if you'd like. Back to the action, Maki swiftly leaps over a dismantle straight into attacking Sukuna as the slash tears open a building behind them. The building leans slowly and falls from its perch right on top of Maki and Sukuna, crashing into the highway. The road starts to collapse and cars are thrown everywhere, particularly around Maki. Sukuna, then using one of the cars as cover, aims a cleave through it towards Maki, who notices it just at the right time to block it with her sword. However, she is flung from the road into a nearby building. And as she crashes through the window, Sukuna speedily is already behind her in the opposite corridor. He immediately connects his fist with her torso and unleashes a cleave. But we're not given a moment's rest or to know what's happened to her, as Eno is suddenly behind Sukuna, aiming the first auspicious beast's power towards him. Sukuna, however, just turns around smirking and lets off a sparkle of slashes that tears into Eno. And Sukuna isn't finished as he's immediately close in, kicking right into Eno. Blood spurts from his mouth, but Sukuna seems to notice something. And as Eno flies through the building window to the ground below, Sukuna notes that he wasn't holding Nanami's cursed tool, and suddenly a dark figure on the floor above Sukuna raises the cursed tool. It turns out to be Kusakabe, who crashes through the floor, hitting Sukuna directly. The curse technique seems to activate, but unfortunately, it didn't seem to do a lot of damage, and Kusakabe realizes that Sukuna saw through the attack and blocked it in time. Sukuna just throws Kusakabe aside like a piece of trash, and we see Maki. Thankfully unharmed anymore, we can breathe a sigh of relief. But this next part is particularly confusing, even though I've stared at it for ages, but I do think I've got it. So basically, Maki kicks Sukuna and he crashes into a room full of pillars. Then Maki, being as fast as she is already in that room and behind Sukuna's trajectory. She then prepares for a shoulder barge and basically threw a pillar at the same time as Sukuna connecting with it. So does Maki, and the force of her shouldering Sukuna through the pillar sent him flying in the opposite direction. Then she jumps to the side and begins to slice at the pillars, unlodging them. She then thinks to herself that even if they saved Yuta, trouble will come to them if they let the fight drag on now, so she'll have to end it here and now. The narrator then finally appears, labeling several of the top sorcerers that face Sukuna after Gojo. However, these people have become no more than appetizers for Sukuna. But there is one who has roused his hunger, and that is in fact Maki Zenin, who has abandoned Jujutsu sorcery by the means of heavenly restriction. And this apparently has brought Sukuna to ecstasy just thinking about her. Maki then kicks the blocks that she had cut off from the pillars and sends them flying towards Sukuna, and in his ecstatic state, he just disappears with speed incomprehensible to the eye, and even the eye of Maki, as she is unable to avoid Sukuna grabbing her by the face and sending them both flying out of the building. As they fall, Sukuna compliments her, since unlike Yuji, she has stripped away every ounce of cursed energy, with all that remains being emptiness. And with a gleeful smile on his face, he shouts that at its core, sorcery is just skin and flesh. They both land on the ground and Sukuna continues to speak, If sorcery is skin and flesh, then Maki is all marrow and bone. Also asking if she understands what he's saying. Her very existence denies what it means to be a sorcerer. As they trade blows, he goes on to say that the outcome of this fight will prove which is worth developing more, sorcery or Maki's marrow and bone. Maki notices that Sukuna has stopped his reverse curse technique, but before she can think it further, Sukuna grabs her sword. Now filled with ecstasy, Sukuna tells Maki that she's the only one that has ever forced a role on him, the role of proving which is better, sorcery or no sorcery. And he fuels his punch with a familiar looking black energy before landing the punch directly onto Maki, creating the first black flash we've ever seen Sukuna do, with multiple angles of the punch shown telling us that this indeed is a phenomenal event. I mean, just look at it, I am speechless. This is showing us exactly what Sukuna is like when he's actually trying. But this does leave me wondering, why hasn't Yuji used Black Flash yet? I don't know what to say, it's wild that he hasn't, and Sukuna using Black Flash has just made me realize it. But we'll keep on reading. Kusakabe just stares on in horror at the sight, unable to comprehend what happened, questioning that there's no way he's the last one left. He even asks where Yuji and Chosa are, and also complains that Meimei's not going to show up now. And as he looks down at the beast that has basically, hopefully not, killed everyone around him, he swears and curses that he was planning on running if they had no chance. But now that they've come this far, he doesn't really have a choice. Is this really happening? Him versus Sukuna. And the chapter ends there with Kusakabe maybe being one of the last standing against Sukuna at the moment. I mean, Choso and Yuji are alive, but they're busy healing Yuji's body so he can fight again. And at that point, what's left? We do have a few hints that Kusakabe is stronger than he seems, but honestly, if Maki was basically destroyed, then no one's got a chance. And I really hope she's not dead. I mean, she's somehow healed from Sukuna's cleave, so she must have something else up her sleeve. But getting hit with a Black Flash is no joke. This series is really turning into Yuji being the only one left, and maybe going as far as to say Sukuna might win. Honestly, I think I'd be more surprised if he doesn't at this point. I gotta applaud Gege, he really knows how to write a very intense, unpredictable story. It's now coming to the end of the video, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. I'm so happy you stopped by. My channel is steadily growing and I'm amazed at the support I'm getting, and I also have a Patreon now, so feel free to support me however you like. The link will be in the description, and I will shout out names at the end of each video. Thank you again, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.